Yeah, I don't know why they switched.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson, joined on this Wednesday morning. Actually, we're recording earlier than usual. If you're live on YouTube, make sure and hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe too. But joined by Brady Quinn and Leger Douzable for a Tuesdays with Brady. Pew, 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 pew. What's up, fellas?
Hey, can you hear me, Will? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I can hear you.
All right.
Man.
How we doing?
Doing well. Excited for Thursday Night Football. Jules and I were just talking about, do we see Denver breaking the streak? They've really struggled versus KC of late. Yep. Do we see that actually finally this being the game? Not with the defense. No, not with the way the Denver defense has played this year. Even though Russell's played all right, I don't foresee that happening.
Yeah, we'll get it in totality now.
Let's
Let's
get to
the script.
Let's
do it now. Come on,
let's live a little dangerously. Yeah. Travis Kelce, I know, didn't practice, I believe, Monday, but he did yesterday. And we know this, Brady, on a Thursday game, it's a shortened week. You don't really practice. It's a walkthrough, right? So there were some concerns that he didn't even partake in that on Monday. It's probably a vet day just to make sure that ankle was good because I know it was a low ankle sprain, they said. So I know when he came out at half versus the Minnesota Vikings, I don't know what they gave him, Brady, but he's like a totally different player than after the ankle twist.
Have you guys ever wondered, too, where's the differentiating point between, a high and low ankle sprain?
True.
Does it kind of depend, Will? I mean, you seem like a guy who doesn't have calves. Does it kind of depend?
Actually, I have probably better calves than you do. I'll be perfectly honest.
You know what? That might be true because I don't really pride myself on having big calves.
Right. I've got great calves.
More of
a squat guy, not so much really a calf raise guy like Will probably was back at the Student Rec Center there. And where were we at? Raleigh?
Yeah, in Raleigh.
Yeah,
I don't have
I've got raised up the whole time.
The short one, we have to put
his arms go up as the calves go up. He's getting ready to go out on the beach or whatever during the little spring break there.
I got great hair from my mom's dad, and then for some reason on my dad's side of things are just calves, man. Calves it looks like I'm smuggling kittens over here. Okay.
Where's your point of differentiation between the two injuries? Because I don't really have much of a calf, and so I kind of look at them I guess low is somewhere where the start of the gastroc or the start of your calf.
Yeah.
Anything below that, and then high is kind of a little higher up, somewhere the mid. The mid part of your shin, that's what I always want to know. Where do you differentiate the two?
I always thought it was an ankle sprain was like a normal one was kind of when you rolled your ankle, and then the high ankle sprain was when you felt like it was more of a leg than just the pure foot and ankle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I know what you mean.
Yeah, and it was weird.
You asked the question and don't know the answer. I don't know the answer either. I'm just trying to.
When I saw the ankle injury live, it looked like it was more foot than anything.
Do we know this wasn't something that happened with him and Taylor Swift? I'm just saying.
One never knows.
I mean, she can't dance really, though, right? Isn't that kind of one of the things that she's not great at? So, maybe it wasn't with Taylor Swift.
Maybe they were doing dance lessons together and he slipped on something.
I'm more curious to see what Will thinks about that conspiracy theory. Have you heard of this?
Which one? What is it?
Oh, it was a week. It's a week old now.
Yeah.
But the one about how she, during her tour, it's an international tour.
Correct.
And she's been traveling around, gallivanting in this private jet, the carbon emissions, a lot of
people. I did hear about that.
Yeah. I like this. It's
a private jet to go see, the Jets versus Chiefs game.
Well, it's not so much that. It's the fact that
it's the Google search.
Google search her, it comes up about all this bad publicity. And so how do you get rid of that? You go to a Jets game. Yeah. You put in the Taylor Swift Jets. Now it just comes up the Jets game.
Yeah, so I heard about that.
I don't know.
All right. So there's a couple of angles here. One, before, if you search Taylor Swift jet, all it would pop up, Taylor Swift jets, all that would pop up was Taylor Swift ruining the earth or the carbon emissions from her private jets. Then for 3 weeks, the only thing that popped up was Taylor Swift at the Jets game. Because you show up at the Jets game, we're leaking out. But now the top Google searches are Taylor Swift jets did Taylor Swift go to the Jets game as a conspiracy to cover up her original? So, and I think it was.
Have we talked about this yet on the Pick Six pod?
No.
Oh, there you go. So this is the content that we need. We're not kidding. We've got some other stuff on the rundown. This is what people want to talk about.
So there's I think it was KFC from Barstool who was talking about this. I saw it on Instagram, but he was saying that apparently Disney did. There's a conspiracy that Disney did this too, because the only thing when you search Walt Disney Frozen before they sent out that movie was his frozen head, right?
Well,
exactly.
Then leads you to why, if you're going to cryogenically freeze just your head instead of your entire body, like Ted Williams did, right?
Yeah.
Like, would you think that, like, all right, let's just play this out in the future? You're freezing yourself because you want to be able to live longer.
Correct.
If you only do your head, you're banking on the fact we're going to be like bionic from the neck down.
Correct.
That's going to take a little longer.
And he died in 66.
You're freezing the entire body.
In 66, you're like, all right, yeah, we'll just freeze my head until we're able to jam human heads on robots and everybody can walk around. Who's thinking that in 1966?
Well, maybe he's ahead of the curve and he knew something.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some technology that we're not privy of that he knew was coming out.
I'm sure.
You know, and he was like, I'm just going to freeze my head. Like you said, we're going to put on a bionic body and I'll be able to walk around and live forever.
Yeah, but I feel like if you want to be brought back to life, like, wouldn't you think if you're like Ted Williams has a much greater chance of being unfrozen and coming back to life before Walt Disney? Like, Ted Williams would be coming back and be like, well, who else is frozen in here? Oh, we got Walt Disney's head. Well, we're not there yet. We're going to have to figure out how to figure out the way of connecting all to the internal or everything else.
My man wants to come back in year 3000 as RoboCop.
Yeah, there you go.
This is, I mean, I get you guys are the age enough where you've got, like, we can talk about like Demolition Man too, right? I mean, with Wesley Snipes and so God, whatever. You remember, and like, also, did anyone ever figure out how like the toilet the shells worked? Where it was like
for the bathroom.
Yeah.
Remember that he was looking for like Sylvester Stallone.
He's like, "This is toilet paper." He's like, "We've got these three shells."
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Dr. Bullock was telling him, like, you know how to use the shells? He was like, what is that? Where's the toilet paper?
Yeah. Remember Stallone's like, hey, he's asking Sandra Bullock, he's like, hey, where's the, I need some toilet paper. I'm going to use the bathroom.
You remember this part? Remember he started, if you cuss, you got a ticket. Remember he started cussing to use it as toilet paper?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay,
that's right. Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a long time. That's a good memory.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do have, my dad, which is probably not great that I was watching this as a young kid, we both really loved that movie. So every time it came on, we watched it. Yeah.
A lot of that's coming to.
So circling back to Thursday Night Football.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is going to be a demolition man against that Broncos defense.
Patrick Mahomes is going to be pooping in the three shells and dropping them on Sean Payton's head. Nope. Okay. I got a theory that for this particular game, or not like a conspiracy theory or anything, just like a theory on it. So the Chiefs host the Broncos this week.
Yep.
And then, by the way, and then play the Broncos again in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yep.
I think they won't show. I think that this is short week. You got some limited. You got Kelsey with the injury. Mahomes had an ankle injury 2 weeks ago. I think this is the Pacheco game. Like, you give the ball to Isaiah Pacheco, let him run loose. You don't care if you win 17-13. You don't care if you win 7-3. Like, you just want to get out of this game with nobody getting hurt, and don't show them anything either. Because
is it Pacheco or Pacheco? I mean, how do you say it where you're from?
Pacheco. Also of note, in between the two Broncos games, they play the Chargers. You don't want to put anything on tape for those two divisional games coming up, especially with a repeat.
I'm right there with you, Will. I mean, if you just look at this Denver defense, it's the worst rush defense in football. I mean, I think Breece Hall is still running right now, Brady. He went for 177 against them, right? And that was his first breakout game. So I think, honestly, while the Chiefs are it's a weird spot for them, Brady. They're kind of like trying to find their identity, right? Because they don't have a number one receiver besides Travis Kelce. So who can Patrick Mahomes really depend on? I think you're right, Will. Like, lean on Isaiah Pacheco. That's been what's been so great about Andy Reid and the maturation of this offense. Like, we're so used to them, throwing for 300, 400 yards. But we saw, at times last year, them play bully ball. Right. I think this is a game, you're right, short week. Your offensive line is more physical than them. Also, DJ Jones, their best defensive tackle, didn't practice on Monday. He's beat up. We'll see if he's able to go. If not, he's their best D tackle stopping the run. They're already putrid at stopping the run. Why would you not really lean on Isaiah Pacheco this game?
It's funny. I brought this point up to Pete. When you looked at the beginning of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs, and outside of Kelsey, it was like kind of like, they don't have anyone that scares you. I was like, well, they do. It's just he's in the backfield. It's Isaiah Pacheco. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? You going to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands?
Yes.
I go, well, there's like the dump downs, check downs, screens. There's other ways of getting Pacheco the ball that still involved the passing game.
Yeah.
But I also think this is like not the maturation, but like the development of what a dynasty has to be or become.
Yeah,
If that's what the Chiefs are, is their defense is playing much better, right? We kind of looked at them last year, we're like, all right, can they deal with all these rookies in the secondary? Yeah, they're fine. They did it. They're playing really good football right now.
They are.
They now have the ability to win in a variety of ways with running the football. And so they don't have to win every game where Patrick Mahomes is a hero and wins in a shootout. Like we've already seen that version of the Chiefs. Yeah. Maybe this is a different version. Maybe this is a version where we see them control the game more, running the football with Pacheco, playing good defense, and not forcing Patrick Mahomes to have to extend plays, subject himself to injury, and have to make these kind of splash plays that aren't really there anymore, at least right now in their offense. And I'll say this last thing. Their wide receiver group misses, to me, what I would consider like a center, like in basketball, if you had a starting five.
Yeah.
And I think Justin Ross, they're thinking he will be that. And the hard thing is his medical history makes you concerned about his ability to consistently be that. But that's what they need. Like Juju kind of was, but I'm saying even a bigger, frame than that. Someone that red zone, third down, catch radius, contested catch, like he can make that sort of play. He's not going to separate as much, but he doesn't need to because he's got the size. So outside of Kelsey, who they have, but he's been a little banged up, it's like you need that player. I'd be curious if they were in the trade market for a guy like that to kind of evolve, or maybe Justin Ross continues to develop into that for them this year. Because look, they've been the one team to take a chance on Justin Ross despite some of the medical history and injuries that he sustained.
Well, and Justin Ross has flashed a lot in the preseason and training camp, and then would deal with more injuries. But I mean, I think Rashee Rice has been. He's not a rebound type of guy, but
I think he'll be the red zone guy because he's the guy that they have been going to.
I know, but he's not like the size type. He's more stuff with speed. He kind of matches Tony and Sky Moore. And all those
well, the guy I want to bring up that Patrick Mahomes seems like he has the most trust in is Justin Watson. He's been the guy that's been able to go up and get those contested jump balls, and he's a guy that they've really leaned on in big situational football because he's getting the one-on-one coverage, and he's been able to win. So I could see him taking a step this year where he becomes the Juju Smith-Schuster of this offense, the guy that if Travis Kelce is double and I can't dump it down to Pacheco in the backfield or McKinnon, I can go to Watson because I trust him.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't take it out. You can't take it out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. You just freaked out about it. I was like, my goodness, dude. Like, Tom Brady's the greatest of all time, right? I'm pretty sure, like, they utilized Kevin Falk early in Tom Brady's career pretty well out of the backfield.
Well, and to your point, you talked about the defense, right? I don't think they're getting enough credit. Like, this team is actually led by its defense right now. I mean, the offense, again, still trying to find their identity. You talk about the young secondary, whether it's Watson, McDuffie, and L'Jarius Sneed is playing Pro Bowl football. So is Trent McDuffie. Both of those guys should be on the Pro Bowl ballot. What L'Jarius Sneed did against Justin Jefferson, I don't think I've seen a corner do Justin Jefferson's whole career. He got physical with him the whole game. And those guys are playing elite level football. I mean, this defense has held teams to 17 points and under week in and week out. And they made just enough stops against the Jets to win that game when the offense in the second half sputtered. So it's weird to even say this, but right now this Chiefs team is led by its defense while the offense is trying to find its identity.
And just worth noting, too, I think that when you look at this stretch of games that the Chiefs have coming up, I mentioned first Denver versus the Chargers at Denver. Then they have Miami. Is that in Germany or is that in London?
It's in Germany. Yeah,
that's the German game. And then the Chiefs are taking their bye after that game. I think that's probably smart just because we don't have a ton of, if any, history really of like German, like traveling to Germany and then traveling back and like readjusting.
The next week,
well, I am curious to see with what's happening around the world right now, if that Germany game still stays put there, and if that doesn't end up being potentially somewhere else.
That's actually that's a pretty
really good point.
Yeah. And then they have, but after their bye, which won't move, I wouldn't think, they have Philly at home and at Las Vegas. And then at Green Bay versus the Bills at home. Like this is like just a pretty the Chiefs are 4-1. They lost at home by 1 point to Detroit. Then they had that weird low-scoring defensive game against Jacksonville, and then they've beaten the Bears, the Jets, and the Vikings. Like I mean, I don't know. This is a big stretch where the Chiefs are going to win more games than they're going to lose.
Right.
But I think this opening game on this Thursday night. That's just why I think we're going to see take it out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. A whole lot of Isaiah Pacheco.
So is the line still 10.5? Last time I looked.
Last time I checked, line was 10.5. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, and this is how I don't know if I've talked to you about this, dudes, but like when I would place a bet in this case, because it's a big line, right? Especially
Big
for a
line.
divisional game
Yeah.
on a short week. I always look at it and just say, all right, if I take the 10.5 in Denver, but the Chiefs end up covering, I'm going to feel more like an idiot in that respect because nothing leading up to the game was telling me that I should actually take the Broncos and the points.
True.
So I have to lay the points in this case. But I know Denver's gonna end up covering. It's a divisional game. They're usually closer than people realize. And I'm still gonna feel like an idiot afterwards for that reason. But not as much for some reason.
Well, if you look at it, we were talking about this before we came on air. Both of these games last year were close. Now, the Chiefs did jump out, I believe, 27-0 or something like that. But Denver scored 21 unanswered. So you're talking about a backdoor late cover potentially happening. I can see that happening because we've seen the Chiefs get lax when they have big leads.
Well,
we saw it versus Jets.
We've seen the Broncos throw Hail Marys to be able to get within striking distance.
Exactly. So the backdoor cover is definitely in play.
To Brady's point, I think like if you take the Broncos and the Chiefs win by 20, you feel like an idiot. If you take the Chiefs and the Broncos, if you take the Chiefs and the Broncos throw a late touchdown to backdoor cover, you're like, well, I just got snaked. I can live with that. The implied score here, by the way, 29-19 for the based on the
models. So
no, based on the point spread and the total, which is 48, which is pretty high for a 10.5 point.
Again,
Who you got?
This is my rationale in betting, though. So I'm going to lay the 10.5 points with Kansas City here. I fully expect them to win, but I think it probably will end up being tighter than that. However, again, you're going to lose bets. Okay, you're going to lose bets. It's conditioning yourself to cope with when you lose those bets and not feeling worse than you need to. So in this case, I'm going to lay the 10.5 points. I know if I lose, I won't feel quite as bad as I would if I take the 10.5 points and end up losing this bet. So that's why I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs.
So see, that's spoken, and I don't mean this like in a condescending way at all. That's spoken like a novice emotional bettor, which is a perfectly fine thing. Like I will bet on Carolina, the Tar Heels, a team that like that way when they win, I'm like, well, at least I didn't lose both ways. So I'm in the same boat with you, 100%. Dude,
well, I've got a lot of Italian and Irish blood in me, so clearly there's a lot of passion, a lot of emotion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm going back and forth. You said the number for the total is at 48.5. I think it was at 49. I don't know if
you're going to play the over-under bet. Is that what you like better?
Not really, because if you look at Denver, they score a lot late, so they go over. I believe this season they're 4-1.
Playing over is a lot more fun than playing under.
It is. I'm going to play the over in this game. And just looking at, was it last Thursday was the Commanders?
Bears and Commanders, 60 points.
That game hit over.
Oh, way over. 60.
So I'm going to say this game hits over because the Chiefs will take an early lead, probably go up 14 or 17-0. But then I see Denver coming back at the end and putting up a couple scores at the end. I'm going to play the over because, again, I would feel more comfortable playing the points with Kansas City for them cover the 10.5. But that's just such a high number. And if you look at these two games, how they played last year, Denver came back in the second half and they covered both of those. So I'm going to play the over in this game.
Yeah, I would lean towards the under, and I think it too depends on the game script. This is a good game. Andy Reid games like this, when he's double-digit favorites, if you're going to live bet anything, if he's got a double-digit lead at halftime, live bet the under or take the second half under because Andy is going to pound the football and force Russell to drop back a bunch, maybe create some turnovers and then really slow the game down. I'll take the Broncos plus the 10.5. Don't feel good about it. Feels like they're begging me to take the Broncos too, which is what I'm.
Everybody had a different bet.
I know. I like that.
Will loves to hate himself after he loses the bet. So he'll literally be hitting old Jack Daniels up, just pounding the bottle. Yeah. Going, I should have taken.
I know who's going to win, and I know the exact score and how it's going to happen, but I want to take the wrong one. That way, I have an excuse to pound bourbon. That's right, Brady. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, fatal flaws for various contenders. Next.
We need the sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, welcome back to the Pick Six Podcast, Tuesdays with Brady. We're going to play a little game, and it's called Fatal Flaws. Bom, bom, bom. We're going to take the best teams in the NFL and find their fatal flaw. And I think that's actually kind of interesting because you see like, you can always kind of like look at like, I guess maybe the Patriots were the exception. I was trying to think of like what the Patriots' fatal flaw always was when they were winning every year. They just didn't have one.
I don't know about that.
Sometimes they wouldn't have a vertical threat.
Sometimes you win despite that. So
yeah,
that's right.
Here's the thing: is like I think we'd all agree: is San Francisco not the best team in the NFL right now?
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
think that's up for debate.
So it's hard to look at their roster and say like, all right, what's their weak point? Because anything we say, someone here at CBS is going to clip this off and try to make it go viral. Like, oh, this is what they're hating. So that's the hard part about doing an activity like this.
Well,
Like,
did you see your boy Dan Orlovsky over at ESPN? So Dan did a thing. He was on Get Up. Well, actually, I guess I got rid of the exclamation point. So he was on Get Up.
Greeny right there.
Well, it used to be Get Up exclamation point, which is just like unnecessary. It's like,
but now what is it?
Well, now it's just Get Up and just there's no.
Yeah, it's Get Up.
Right. There's no energy behind it.
but I don't want a 6 a.m. show being like, get up. Like, just be like, hey, get up. Like,
that's like the alarm clock you don't want. You got to change on your phone or change on your alarm clock.
I like to think that that me like making fun of that for like years has helped to change the punctuation.
To do a voice note and record me yelling, get up, like, and then have you wake up to that every single day of your life.
That would be amazing.
Oh, God, welcome to hell. But anyway, Dan pointed out he said on Get Up that he's like Max.
Is he going to say their cornerback play? Because that's the only thing you look at and say.
No. He was talking about Brock Purdy. He was like, Mac Jones would be doing the same things in San Francisco that Brock Purdy's doing. George Kittle goes on KNBR and they ask him, like, did you hear what he said? He goes, yeah, that's stupid. Watch Brock Purdy, watch the tape, And then like last night. But then last night, Dan comes out with a breakdown of like why Brock Purdy's awesome, which I think is just like fun. I don't know. I found it amusing.
Look, we always love the debate hypotheticals because, we can prove this in real time, right? Like Mac Jones eventually it's never going to happen. Look, by saying that Mac Jones would excel in Kyle Shanahan's offense is not a knock on Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Like we can say that, right? Like it's okay to say that. Like it's okay to say, like, for example, I was asked this week, would Dak Prescott excel with the San Francisco 49ers offense? Yes. Like, that's not a knock on Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's been phenomenal, and he deserves to be in the MVP consideration. But I also don't want to take away from what's around him, too, and what guys like George Kittle and Juszczyk and Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and the offensive line, everyone, Kyle Shannon's play calling. Like, that's all part of the formula. Like, we always get too much praise as quarterbacks for our success, and the reality is it's a sum of all the parts. We're just kind of the guy to help kind of keep it all together and execute it, right?
Yeah.
So
what's the fatal flaw for the 49ers?
I don't know if there is a fatal flaw. I mean, like
literally
the one thing you'd say is, all right, Brock Purdy doesn't have a lot of experience or even postseason experience. So maybe you'd say like they're going to get there. And when they do get there, does that matter? I don't know, right? I don't have any postseason experience, so it's not like I can speak to them in that regard. Yeah. I think their cornerbacks, if you look at their roster and how talented they are, that's probably an area where you say, like, all right, if you're facing a team, for example, like the Eagles, who do have really talented wide receivers and A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and speed on the outside, that's going to be a tough matchup for them to match up with consistently man-to-man. That's the only thing that you'd say, like, all right, like, could you see Philly having success there in those one-on-one matchups? Sure, but I also think the 49ers pass rush and their coverage so far has been phenomenal. So I'd have to see that before I believe it right now. And that's kind of where we're at. Like Philly and San Francisco are by far and away the best two teams. It'd be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, when I look at that, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is a weird game to play because we're 5 weeks into the season, and I'm not trying to suggest that this is the case, but is it possible the Niners haven't played? I mean, the Niners are the best team in football, but like they beat Pittsburgh, who's fine. They beat the Rams by a touchdown, and I thought the Rams looked pretty good in that game. I think the Rams are a good team. They beat the Giants, who stink. They beat the Cardinals, who aren't very good, and they stomped the Cowboys, but the Cowboys haven't played anybody either. And like maybe I don't know. Like I mean, I think the Niners are really good, but I don't know that they were at Cleveland, at Minnesota, versus Cincinnati, at Jacksonville. I guess we find out like three of the next four on the road. I think we find out. Like if they're 9-0, I mean, I'm not. Then they played people, right? Like on the road, et cetera, et cetera. I just, I don't know that there's like a ton. There's not a ton of great teams right now. 5 weeks into the season, maybe.
I mean, it's just so early in the season to determine like who truly is dominant. But I think we can say that San Francisco, for every test that's been put in front of them,
yeah.
they're dominant. It's the NFL. Like
it's the NFL.
You play who's on the schedule. Like you can lose any week. Like nobody saw the Cardinals beating the Dallas Cowboys, and they beat the brakes off them. So that's just literally the NFL. And as dominant as they were against the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of people were saying this was a litmus test to see, where the Dallas Cowboys were in comparison, especially losing 2 playoff games to them 2 years in a row. They passed that with flying colors. I mean, I know you like a good smoke beef, Brady. We saw the Michael Parsons come out and say, it's personal. Well, not losing 2 playoff games in a row wasn't personal enough. And then Debo responds saying, you might not want to make it any more personal because we beat you 42-10. It might get worse for you.
By the way, did Deion make the whole "it's personal" thing popular now? I feel like before this year,
really
like he's the one who started that at Colorado, and then now like everyone's saying it. They're like, oh, it's personal, or maybe it was the Jordan documentary. But even after the Jordan documentary, there wasn't a lot of people who came out like using that. Now everyone's, because Deion's saying, they're like, yeah, I took that personal. It's like, oh, okay.
The Jordan doc, like, and I took that personally, definitely like spiked it. Maybe Deion built off of the Jordan doc.
But it didn't like catch on. Now I hear like guys say it all, like we took that personal. It's like, all right, cool. Glad you took that. That is personal. I don't know.
Well, it also, by the way, it also throws like in the Pete Briscoe's like, you think they tried harder because he said something? I'm like, I mean, I think that motivated him. I think it like definitely helped. Also, something that Pete Briscoe said on yesterday's show that was incredibly stupid. He said we're like, Pete, like, how concerned are you about Dallas? He's like, what? It's not a big deal. It's one game. They went in and got ambushed. What's the problem? It's like,
ambush.
It's like, you think they got ambushed on Sunday Night Football by that's not Pete? Like, do you know what an ambush is?
Sometimes in the playoffs to knock you out.
That's the word usage. I'm not sure
exactly.
Is the way of describing what took place on it.
They got baby seal clawed. They didn't get ambushed.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, ambush implies that like you didn't see something coming, right?
Like you knew what it was when you stepped on that field in the very first play.
It's like Pete, they circled this game as like the biggest game of the season before the season. Like this is they get ambushed walking into San Francisco after losing the playoffs the last 2 years with the 49ers undefeated and the game on Sunday Night Football, the biggest game of the week, bro.
Yeah, that's wild. But getting back to what we were talking about, Will, you're saying what's their fatal flaw? I know you brought up the corners, but honestly, watching that game film, like they don't major in man coverage, but they did versus the Dallas Cowboys. Well, and they beat them up at the line.
It's not man; it's more of a match zone.
Correct. Yeah,
and that's all I'm saying is like that's the only thing you'd say, but that's being nitpicky. Like, again, like the cornerbacks are good. Yeah. We're doing a segment for the podcast. Yeah. What do you want?
I mean, if anything, I have question marks with their O-line besides Trent Williams, but even they've played really well. Like. So,
over under Joe Musso says over under 42 and a half Yeti products at Brinson's house.
How many do you have in the background just looking at it?
I will say this on my desk. I currently have 1, 2.
Oh my goodness.
3 Yeti products right here.
Small cooler back there
coolers,
too.
Shirts.
This has an iced coffee in them. The other 2 had water in them. I left 2 on my desk. So Musso, not wrong. Shout out Yeti. Yeti rules. Moving along, the Buffalo Bills. Speaking of teams that play in Yeti-like conditions.
Injuries.
Yeah. That was an easy one.
It's actually their fatal flaw will continue to be moving forward.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
it's like when you, and it's not just injuries. It's like to key cogs on their team, right? You talk about Matt Milano, what he means to that defense. This guy's been like a Pro Bowl linebacker for the last 3 or 4 years. He was playing at an all-pro level. The things he can do coverage-wise, the way he diagnoses plays, high football IQ. I mean, you can't replace that. Like Dorian Williams, I love him, kid out of Tulane. I thought that was the perfect team for him to go to. I honestly thought he would be starting next to Matt Milano, learn the system, and eventually be able, those two would be, the forefront of that defense for the next 5-6 years. But now he's thrust into action a little bit early. And he actually played really well in that game versus Jacksonville as far as you saw some of his, speed and coverage. You saw him diagnose plays and get downhill. I think it's still going to be a learning curve because Matt Milano just has that defense down to a T. Talk about losing Tre'Davious White. Kyer Elam was getting cooked on the outside by Calvin Ridley. He was a healthy scratch for a couple games this season. He was a first-round pick. So, I mean, the injury bug has killed him. And Daquan Jones, people aren't talking about that injury. That's a massive injury up front for the Buffalo Bills.
Well, and I think, too, the other thing with the fatal flaw and the injuries, especially on defense, is we all go back and remember 13 seconds, and that's why they've been trying to build this defense to slow down the Chiefs and to stop Patrick Mahomes late in games. And if you don't have bodies out there, it's tough to do. What about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I'm interesting that they're being thrown in this mix. I don't think they're quite on the same level, but they are up there in terms of the division and playoff runs.
The record shows they're up there right now.
Record says they're up there. So what's their fatal flaw?
You want me to go? To me, it's their pass rush. They only have 4 sacks throughout the season
so far.
Now, Shaq Barrett is a guy that is consistently get to the edge, but the other guy on the other side, Joe
Tryon, yeah.
He's struggled ever since being a first-round pick getting to the quarterback. So they need to have something. And, Todd Bowles, he likes to blitz a lot, right? Yeah. He manufactures pressure, but they've struggled to get to the quarterback consistently. I think that could be an issue for them down the stretch. It might not be in the division they're in because if you look at the offenses they face, the Saints offense has been bad this year. Carolina Panthers has been bad. And we know the Atlanta Falcons like to run the ball, which is the Tampa Bay Bucks strong suit on defense. So it won't hurt them in the division, but if they want to make a run to the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs, they got to figure out how to manufacture more pressure on the quarterback.
They are coming off the bye, so that number should increase over time. I like the front seven. They're great against the run. I think they will get better rushing the passer, and they're good in coverage. I would say if you want to be nitpicky, you could say maybe their running game. That was kind of an issue during the time Tom Brady was there, although maybe by design because he wanted to throw it around a little bit more. But I would say if you're looking at this team right now, I believe they're atop of the NFC South, or at least there's some mix there.
They are. Saints have 2 losses. So.
You'd have to say that, all right, well, they're in the playoffs. And if you're in the playoffs, what do you got to do? You got to be able to run the football. You have to play in some places with inclement weather, and that always becomes part of that game is when the weather dictates how you can play it. You always are going to have the ability to hand off the football. So that would be the one thing that if they can't find that balance, it's going to be an uphill sledding, adverse conditions, potentially on the road, in the playoffs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Bucks 3-1 at the top of the division. Falcons and Saints 3-2. Obviously, the Panthers are winless. I think it'll be interesting to see. You could even say the fatal flaw is they're the Buccaneers. I mean, they had an early bye.
Wow!
I'm just saying.
I'm
just saying. The Bucks are 3-1. What's the record after Detroit, Atlanta, at Buffalo on a Thursday, at Houston versus the Titans, and at San Francisco? Yeah.
Ooh, that's a gauntlet.
They can go 2-4
about this team in the next 4 weeks, though.
Exactly. I think we'll learn a lot about it. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles also undefeated. What is the Eagles' fatal flaw, Brady or Deuce?
So I went back and forth with this one, Will and Brady. I think it's a combination of 2 things. And I think the first one I'm about to say, I think they've kind of rectified. It was their passing defense. But they did have some injuries. The coverage in the back end. But let's not forget James Bradbury was hurt. Blankenship was hurt in the beginning. Yep. They actually played really well last week. So I would take that off. And then you know what helps coverage? Pass rush. We finally see Hassan Reddick, after I believe having that thumb surgery, really come to the party. Jalen Carter's been at the party the whole year. He literally is playing all pro football right now. My fatal flaw for them is just getting the rhythm with their 2 coordinators. People forget they have 2 new coordinators.
I'd say the inexperience.
Exactly. So it was going to take a while for Sean Desai and Brian Johnson to really get their feet wet into this game and calling plays. It's a rhythm thing when you call plays. So people question their offense. It doesn't look as explosive. Well, it did Sunday versus the Rams. It looked really good, and they looked really good on defense. So, just kind of like San Francisco, this is me nitpicking, right? Because I think on paper, I would say them and San Francisco have the most complete teams in all the NFL. So I would say it's the coordinators being able to find that rhythm going forward as they make this run.
Yeah, I just describe it more as an experience. I think if you were going to be nitpicky, you'd say probably their secondary. Yeah. With some of the changes that have occurred there, and they have faced some injuries, but they're getting healthier. So again, a team that we're trying to make fatal flaws for, but they don't really have any.
Yep. At the Jets this week versus the Dolphins, at Washington, and then versus Dallas before their bye, and then at Kansas City. Oh my gosh! By the way, this is a spy. So I think that they probably go 3-1 in that stretch. Worst case scenario. They could go 2-2, I guess. But then listen to Philly's out of the bye schedule: at Kansas City versus Buffalo versus San Francisco at Dallas.
Oh my God!
That's
had a stretch like that.
Kansas City, Buffalo, and San Francisco are other than Philly, are the 3 best teams in football, and they got maybe Miami. They got them just back to back to back. So that's kind of interesting, worth watching. Okay, speaking of Miami, the Dolphins playing good football, playing great football. I don't know if you know this, Mike. They have the most yards in the first 5 weeks of the season. Did you hear?
Ever. Yeah. Over the 2000 Rams.
Over the
1999 Rams. Yeah.
99. Sorry.
That's fine. That was my high school graduation year. Very exciting.
I mean, honestly, it's the hell.
Did you hear Mike McDaniel's answer?
Really?
By the way,
what was his answer?
Our buddy, a friend of the podcast, Adam Beasley, or good buddy Adam Beasley, asked Mike McDaniel about it, and Mike McDaniel goes, mission accomplished. That's what we set out to do all offseason, was to have the most yards in NFL history through 5 weeks. That's what we were worried about. And Andrew Siciliano was talking about it on the Rich Eisen show yesterday. And he was like, "What a stupid question."
That's so funny.
So, Bees, good job by you, buddy.
Speaking of questions, Coach Franklin from Penn State, did you see that question he got asked?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Did you see it?
I have not seen it.
Fake. Like someone called in to mess with
somebody called him, and I think it was over Zoom or something like that during a press conference, and a reporter asked him, and this is not me downing the reporter, but he asked him, with Drew Eller, is there any time you call a play in, it's just for him to take a shot, no matter what the defense looks at? He was like, Coach Franklin looks at him, he's like, my skin was itching when you asked me that question. He's like, we would never tell a quarterback to just drop back and throw it down deep for no reason, no matter what the coverage is. So I thought that was pretty funny. But you said it's the health of Tua.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this team operates the same without Tua.
Yeah,
I mean, you could probably pick some other things. Yeah. Like I think their offensive line could at times.
They've had some injuries,
That could be something you point to. But if he doesn't stay healthy and they don't have him at quarterback, I think this whole thing looks different. We saw that last year. Yeah. I think you'd see it this year too.
To me, that's the obvious one, right? And we've been saying that all offseason, and people get mad. Tuanon get mad. Why do you keep saying if? I mean, because history has shown he has not been healthy for a whole season, even going back to college. To me, it's the defense, guys. This defense is giving up 27 points a game. We saw in the Buffalo game, right, that, and Josh Allen and them, I think they wanted to make a statement that game as far as, yes, we know Miami is the hot new thing right now, but we've dominated this division for the last 3 years, and they decimated that defense. I know Vic Fangio, we knew it was going to be a learning curve. Obviously, we thought Jalen Ramsey would be there. He's not there right now. They've struggled a little bit in the secondary. Caden Kohu has struggled on the outside. I think they need to move him back in the inside. More so, Cam Smith should get more snaps, I believe, on the outside. And then as far as their pass rush, right, Jalen Phillips has been beat up this year, right? Chubb has not really come to the party as of yet. Van Ginkel is their best player on defense right now.
So far.
He's playing Pro Bowl football, and I don't think any of us would have said that going into the season, Brady. So I think the learning curve in regards to this Vic Fangio defense and trying to figure things out, because what if there is a game like there was versus Buffalo where the team can't put up 40 points, or Brady, right? What are they going to do then if the defense is giving up 27 points?
Yeah, no, I mean, they got to outscore them, which I think that's kind of how they're built. And look, it's first year with Vic Fangio. They don't have Jalen Ramsey back yet. If you kind of go through those years of Vic Fangio defenses, typically they're locking those guys on the outside out on islands, and then you've got the 9 guys on the inside taking care of the rest. So I'm not as concerned about that. I think it's just really the health of Tua.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing too, I think it's interesting to note that we have not seen the last quarterback to come back to the last quarterback to suffer a concussion and come back the next week and play was Tua last year, which means if you suffer a concussion, you were out for the next week. Like the NFL is being much more diligent about it. It's a good thing. I mean, even we don't want to judge the level of concussions here, but if Tua suffers a concussion, I feel like just because of what happened last year, it's not a 1 week and he's back type of thing. I think they'll have to be really careful with it. So I think that's you suffer concussion in the wild card game, right? And you're out. You're out for 2 weeks.
When we do this activity, I think the first thing I think of when I think of it's what's the first concern you have with each team? Like what comes to mind?
Yeah, I think a lot of us would have picked the Dolphins to be. I would have way more confidence in the Dolphins being a really, really good football team if I was before the season. If I was confident that Tua would play the whole season, and I think Harry points out in the chat that his jiu-jitsu and the better offensive line has definitely helped. I do think you watch him when he lands, he actually does keep his head up way better than he did before.
Was he turtling it out
how
there?
How do you practice that?
Maybe he should have a neck roll. Maybe we should think about a way of pinning it in there.
Full Bosworth?
Quarterback with a neck roll?
No, we're about to. The jiu-jitsu or judo or what was it?
Which one was it?
heard
By the way,
both.
there's a good episode of the Pick Six podcast where we talked to Randy Cross about Steve DeBerg and the voice box he had on there. Did you ever hear that story?
Steve DeBerg came to Cleveland one time, consulted with us. He was like literally talking us into this is all 2008, like talking us into like no look passes. Like he was like,
Really?
yeah, you gotta practice them though. Like you're gonna look here, but you're gonna throw to that camera, and you're gonna look that one, you're gonna throw to that one, and you're gonna look here and you're gonna throw there. And I was just like, okay, cool.
Turns out he was right. He's way ahead.
No, I mean, like, to a degree, but like then there's certain elements where you see other guys. Like here's the thing: is you only see the no look passes when they work.
Right.
Like I can vividly remember, far as I think the last playoff game with the Vikings, when it was like a simple. I think it was just a Hank concept. Typically, you start over the ball, then you get your curl flat on the outside, whichever way to squeeze you work to. Well, it was one of them where he drops back. He's like, yeah. Woo! And it was like 3 dudes standing there right over the TV. And I was like, wow, okay, well, that's not good. I think it was versus Arizona.
That's
I'm
terrible.
not positive.
Oh yeah, that was the game where when Rodgers made it. No, when it was Kurt Warner and Kurt Warner's coming out party with Larry Fitz in the playoffs, maybe.
Maybe I can't recall, but I just remember watching that on tape and like, oof.
Yes.
When no look passes go bad.
I think that's where the
the
Cardinals and the Steelers met in the Super Bowl. But anyway, DeBerg back in the day lost his voice the week of the game, so they installed a speaker inside of his jersey on the back. This like projected his voice when he was in the huddle. So he had like a microphone. He was screaming. He was like screaming in the microphone, and then it would blast. They had like a speaker built into, like in the 1970s, a giant like huge speaker in his jersey. You guys aren't surprised by this, okay? We already talked about the Chiefs' fatal flaw. Let's rip through the rest of these. The Lions may have solved their fatal flaw with Jameson Williams coming back.
That was mine. I don't know if you saw it in the rundown. That's why I put it. I think they needed a deep threat element, but him coming back, I mean, didn't play really that well last week, but he's still working his way back. I think that'll open that offense even more for Ben Johnson.
I think it's depth. I think they can't. They have to be healthy if they suffer an injury almost anywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of, I think that Teddy Bridgewater there is backup, right?
Yeah.
Which Teddy can go in and do a good job for him. But I don't
like that answer.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think Jameson comes back.
Secondary's already got a few hits already.
Yeah.
You think Garner Johnson, Mosley came back and now he's out for the year again. Yeah. And Brian Branch, hasn't played since having that injury the other day. So
I think it's their depth there to me.
I think it's their jerseys. Because they're the Lions. Like if this is like a different team, we'd be like, this team is unbelievable. Like because they wear the Lions jerseys.
Good, man.
I love this Lions team. I was picturing in my head during the football on Sunday. I was like, I could see a Lions Dolphins Super Bowl.
By the way, can we do like a shout out not only to the ownership there in Detroit, but like to all owners in the NFL? This is how you build a franchise.
Yes.
Yep. This is how you do it. You build from the inside out and you give it time. Like for all the people who like kind of want to doubt and everything else, we're seeing it all come to fruition, but it's because ownership was patient. They allowed the front office and Dan Campbell and his staff to do what they did with the players they have, and they allowed this thing to grow. They weren't impatient about it, even after suffering some heartbreaking losses and things not going their way. So, like, for the David Teppers out there who, once again, is meddling with Frank Reich and everyone else, learn to have some patience. This isn't like a hostile takeover where you flip the company and you make it profitable again. It doesn't work like that in a year's time. Like, your quarterly statements aren't always going to look good maybe for a year or two before you then start being profitable. Like, I don't understand why these owners get so micromanaging with their leadership style. It's like, let the football people do the football stuff.
Exactly.
Because you didn't make your money from football.
That's exactly what I was about to bring up. Did Frank Reich teach you how to be a billionaire?
Yeah.
So why would you meddle in football operations? Like, I never got that. You're an owner, you're paying a lot of money, but sometimes you just got to be a silent investor, man.
By the way, what does that say about how insanely meddling and just how meddling insanely, or how Jim Irsay manages to meddle? That Frank Reich is out there, he's like, Mr. Tepper is really involved day to day, and I really love it. It's like, okay, one, we know you're lying, and two, like if you think he's like, this is actually decent meddling compared to like my old meddling. Like the last meddling was in crazy meddling. This is at least just angry like billionaire meddling.
But it comes with a sense of ego, especially when you put your name on a business school there at Carnegie Mellon. So obviously you think.
Oh no, David. If the Panthers. I mean, they have too many fatal flaws to list, but their biggest fatal flaw is David Tepper right now. That's for freaking sure. I might want to clip and send that one out on social and watch the Panthers fans get lit up. Finally, the Jaguars.
Jaguars.
What is the Jaguars' fatal
So
flaw?
I went with two things.
Oh,
Their offensive line.
you only get one. No. You only get to pick one.
Yeah, it's not fatal flaws. This is the
Flaws.
Panthers.
There's no S.
Yeah.
All right,
They're
so
not the
offensive line.
Jaguars.
This is their fatal flaw. Not leaning into
Jaguar.
Travis Etienne enough.
Okay.
To me, like when he has a good game, that's usually when they have a lot of success. We saw it last week versus the Buffalo Bills. And I know you got, the promised one at quarterback. He's got the long hair flowing and everything. But if you just look at the history of them, and even during that playoff run last year, Travis Etienne really started, taking off towards the back end of that season. And in the playoff game versus the Kansas City Chiefs, he essentially almost put the team on his back. So, I think they need to lean into him more. I know you say we don't get two. Offensive line would be my other one, though.
This is going to sound a little bit like a cop-out because I think there's actually a few things, like you said, you can point to. But how I summarize all of that is consistency.
Okay.
This is a team that I just feel like week in and week out,
we don't know who
you don't know what you're going to get, what they're going to be, and whether it's not giving the ETN the ball enough, poor blocking from the interior of the offensive line, the defense not showing up quite as much. I mean, it's hard to get a sense, or even Trevor Lawrence, who hasn't played as consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a nice win this past week, but I think it's just consistency. And maybe that's because they're still a young team. Ridley comes over this year. You're still getting more consistency with him in the system out of him. I mean, it's we saw them last year become a playoff team.
Yeah.
Everyone's expectations, the next step is, Pete, they're going to play in a Super Bowl. It's
which is crazy.
It doesn't happen that fast sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than to see that and take that next big stride. And I just think they're more inconsistent right now than anything else, where I'd love to bet them every single week. But you look at the AFC South right now, I'm like, I don't know how much better they are than the Colts or how much better they are than the Tennessee Titans. Or the Texans for that matter. It's a pretty tight division, and we didn't think that coming into it. We thought Jacksonville was going to walk away with it.
I think something to be said, too, is people tend to forget how they won games at the back of it last year. A lot of pick sixes, a lot of
we got lucky.
A lot of one-score games. And, Brady, we know this. That's not consistent, right? So, they were ahead of the curve last year, right? I think Tennessee having some injuries also helped them make that run to the playoffs. And, honestly, I've been pleasantly surprised by their defense this year. That was their weak spot last year. I think the way Josh Allen and that secondary is playing right now, it's become a real strength on that team. Let's not forget, they held the Chiefs low enough where they could have won that game.
Sure.
It was the offense that didn't show up in that game. So I've been surprised with their defense. I think you hit it right on the head. I don't think it's a cop-out. Which Jacksonville Jaguars team are we going to get week in and week out? Are you going to be consistent? Whether that's, them running the ball enough, the offensive line, interior offensive line. You paid Brandon Sheriff a lot of money. He struggled inside. They need to play better inside of that interior offensive line.
It's exactly like which Yeti product is Will Brinson going to pull out or use when he's gallivanting around his house.
Right. It varies based on what I'm consuming.
Yeah. Before we move on, just to Will and Harry, there's one team that we didn't put on here that I thought we should have put on here.
Who?
The Seahawks. Why didn't we put them on there? They only got one loss.
Okay.
I could get down with
I
that.
picked them as my sneaky team to go to the NFC Championship game.
Really?
Yeah. I can't wait till they play San Fran. That'll be a quote unquote litmus test.
What's the Seahawks? What's the Seahawks?
They beat
fatal flaw?
Detroit.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what you point to.
It's health. They haven't had a starting five offensive line that they wanted to sit out there. They're two booked.
That line is so much better than it used to be when Russell was there. It's hard to point to that for me.
And they've done a really good job of drafting guys taking the Bradford kid out of LSU and then Olu from Michigan. Played really well when they had to go into to play this year. So, I mean, once they get everybody back, hopefully after the bye, I think this is a team that can really take off.
I still worry about their pass rush. That was
really?
something. They come on late. They were not good early. That's something that you need to see more consistency for.
Well, you got to think they just got Jaden Reed back, Draymond Jones, who both of them played outstanding.
I mean, Jamal Adams, who's somehow
they do suck.
Jamal Adams somehow a decent edge rusher from the safety position too.
And that was the other thing. It's if you're counting pressures from your secondary, it's that's kind of to me
but
that's part of the fatal flaw
because he hasn't been there. Right?
To me, linebackers, you go in the secondary, they're good. It's just early on they didn't show a lot of production. I know they've kind of been better of late, but again, you take Jamal Adams away from that.
I think that actually helps them, to be honest with you.
No, it does, but I'm saying but I'm saying if you just rush their front four, which is when they won the Super Bowl back to back. It was just a four-man rush. They weren't bringing additional pressure, safeties off edges all the time. It was more of that.
I think that Nwosu, who played really well, and they gave him an extension. I think he's going to keep playing well at the end. Taylor's in a contract year. He's going to play well. I think this team, They had some freak injuries, like Devin Witherspoon was hurt in the beginning of the year. They still got to get everybody together, right? I think Kobe Bryant has been banged up. Once everybody gets healthy and they're coming off a bye, hopefully they get everybody back. I think this is a team that nobody's talking about that's going to be really dangerous.
I think this Week 6 game with the Seahawks and the Bengals has the potential to be the whoa, what a crazy 1 o'clock finish game. Like that goes to overtime and like there's some zaniness at the end.
Where's it at? Where's it at? Will, is it
in Cincinnati?
Cincinnati.
Oh,
it's in the nasty natty, is what they call it.
Is it? I always like forget. Like I'm always like, oh, the weather. It's like 70 degrees and sunny here in North Carolina. I'm like, well, it can't be gross in Cincinnati. I'm like, oh no, it could be gross anytime in Cincinnati.
Like that's right, that's that Ohio weather right there.
Right. Like, all right. So Sunday we're looking at.
It doesn't matter what it says now, Will. That's how I know you're not from the Midwest, buddy. I'm gonna look at the forecast that day, and even then, it could change by the hour.
Did my 14 Yeti products give that away?
Trap. It was 70 at one point in time on Saturday. It started the day at 42. At one point, it would drop back down to 50. Like, you got to understand, you can't look at the forecast ahead of time. Just wake up, look at it that day. That's essentially what you're going to get.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Brady will tell us where he's headed and what the Irish's future holds. Plus, I will get some headlines really quickly. Next.
Freddie! Surprise!
Dad! What's going on with your son?
Wish I knew. He's got a girlfriend I've never even heard of. When I told him I wanted to spend more time with him, he said no.
It's just not a good time.
Have you considered that he hates you?
Don't sit there! It was our Christian Lacroix pillows.
So we can't sit on the couch?
Not in jeans.
Welcome back as we wrap up the Pick Six podcast here, Tuesdays with Brady. Brady Quinn, you're traveling. Where are you going?
Headed to South Bend for Notre Dame USC. So
rivalry.
Yeah, another place. Again, don't look at the weather because it looks a little dicey right now. But maybe that's good for Notre Dame, maybe not. But either way, it should be an interesting matchup.
I guess that's the noon kickoff game, big noon kickoff, the Fox big noon kickoff game that Brady's on.
Well, no, actually, it's an NBC game, so you're not even accurate in that regard. Our pregame's just there for it.
Yeah, Notre Dame.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Well, but last week the Notre Dame Duke game was on.
That was Louisville.
Yeah, because Louisville was home.
And that was on what, ESPN, ABC?
Sorry, 2 weeks ago the Notre Dame Duke game was on.
Also on
it was on ABC. Yeah, because I think
it was on ABC, not on NBC.
What?
It was on ABC, not NBC.
Yeah, ABC.
Yeah, because it was at Duke.
Yeah.
That's part they own. You know, they had
I'm aware of how it works, you Irish jabroni. Well, okay, so
if it's at Notre Dame, it's going to be on NBC.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. That makes more sense. I just always assumed that anything Notre Dame related NBC owned because they were like the president of NBC is a leprechaun.
Just the home games.
Just the home games. Okay, so are you excited to prance around like a leprechaun and be a little Irish celebrity at the game?
No, we just lost last week. I'm nervous for this. You know, I'm gonna have to deal with Leinart the whole time talking trash. We're not on talking terms right now.
Is there a bet going into this game?
We haven't decided because we literally won't talk to each other this week. So we'll see how it goes.
Is Louisville might not be bad.
No, look. I love Jeff Brom. He does a heck of a job. Their defensive staff, Ron English, those guys did a heck of a job. I give them all the credit in the world. Jordan, the running back's phenomenal, and then Thrash is a big time home run to a wide receiver. And Notre Dame didn't play well. You know, they picked a terrible time to not put out their best performance, and they weren't the more physical team. Like, I could admit that about like Notre Dame, like they weren't the more physical team, and I don't have to go chasing down like someone with their ARP card right now to go beat them up or find them in a bar.
And I think that was the biggest thing. I didn't see that going into this game, like the way that defense. I knew their defense was good, but they hadn't really been tested. I believe they played NC State in a low-scoring game. Really hadn't had anybody on the schedule. I was surprised the Notre Dame offensive line got whooped like it did.
Well, they had an injury, so they're actually rotating two of the interior offensive linemen, which didn't help. And they lost their right tackle for the last two series of the game. But look, all the way around, it wasn't good schematically. There were some poor decisions, I think, too, by the coaching staff. And guys didn't play well, like bottom line. And look, they've got a USC team that struggles defensively. We've all seen that. But when the game's on the line, there's a quarterback in Caleb Williams who can make a play to win the game like he did last week versus Arizona and countless times over the past year and a half now. Literally. So that's a problem. When the best player in college football is walking in your stadium. Like, that's always a big time concern. That's why Notre Dame's favored, which I was a little bit surprised by. I think they're given 2.5, 3 points, depending on the book.
Because of USC's defense.
Probably, but like Notre Dame's coming off a loss, and it was, it was a tight one versus Duke. They could have lost that. They obviously lost to Iowa State. So it was a little bit surprised to see that line, which kind of makes me feel good because it
should make you feel good because everybody's going to want to take USC with Notre Dame losing 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Let's really quick. Let's hit before. Sorry, if we just want to hit Kirk Cousins. Vikings are. Should the Vikings?
They're not trading him.
I'm with you. It's not happening.
He's got a no trade clause. Like, he would have to agree to it. So why would he want to put himself in a system that A, he doesn't know, B, Justin Jefferson's going to be gone for 4 games, but he might be only gone for 4 games. And so, you could be out of the playoff hunt, but there's still other personal aspirations and things. And he's got a family. He's a family guy. He doesn't uproot them.
That's what the thing is most important. Like, after watching quarterback and seeing how close he is with his family and kind of the community they've built in Minnesota, I don't think he moves without essentially getting a new deal. Like, if you
100%.
trade for him, it's got to be where he's going to be there for at least 2 to 3 years.
And here's the problem with the new deal is Daniel Jones made it really difficult for anyone out there who's going to be a suitor of Kirk Cousins, because he's saying clearly, I've got a better track record. I've done more in this league than him. So my amount's probably 45, 50 million
50.
a year.
It's got to be 50.
And at 35, you're saying as the team, like, well, okay, but you're 35. Like, not everyone's going to be Tom Brady, but every quarterback and every agent says, no, I'm playing to 45 too, and I'm going to play at a really high level the whole time.
Allegedly.
And so that's their pitch, because they want another bite at the apple. So it's a much harder negotiation than I think people realize. And by the way, I wouldn't be shocked if Cousins, because he's done it before, doesn't ask for 2-3 years of a fully guaranteed deal with all this.
Yeah. And let's not forget, we talk about, like, it's like the 2 guys who were like, okay, maybe this is the new trend. Maybe this is how people are going to be. Like, they're going to not full 45 like Tom Brady, but it's like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. It's like, oh, I see. Achilles injury at age 39 and absolute crap from Russ. Like, I mean, like, it's like, it's hard to play. Playing quarterback is really hard. Playing quarterback into your late 30s is like borderline impossible. One more thing. I am curious. We weren't going to cover the injuries, but I do think that, like, the Anthony Richardson injury is really, like, I mean, it's one concerning, but also, like, interesting from a topic perspective. He has 3 different injuries: a concussion, 2 shoulder injuries on 3 different design runs, 3 different games, 5 weeks into his NFL career, and he's only played in 4 games. Like, how big do we think this is just like random occurrence, or is this like a major red flag for his future?
It's on him. Like, if you look at all those hits, they could have been avoided if he just slides down. Like, especially
the touchdown concussion one.
Yeah, the concussion one, that was a little weird. But no, if you look at it, I watched the game from the all-22 view. He kind of slows down, like, not expecting the guy to hit him. I guess he thought the guy was going to just let him scamper in.
He got upended for sure.
Regardless.
Yeah.
I mean,
But the one that he just sustained, the AC joint, slide. Like, when defensive linemen lay on you, this, Brady, more than anybody. Like, that's a lot of weight being put on you. So, like, he has to learn, like Jalen Hurts learned, like, there's some situations where 3 or 4 yards doesn't matter. I need to be able to be here for my team. Let me slide down and live to play another down. And that was a situation where he should have did that.
Yeah, I think when you're a quarterback, you play in a system where you've got either quarterback design run or zone reads where you're reading it. Yeah. We used to always have a saying, like, unless you run a 4-5, like, when in doubt, hand off. And even if you do run a 4-5, like, more often than not, hand off. I mean, you want it to be so blatantly obvious that it's there for you that you're not going to be around many people. You're getting more than a 3-4 yard gain. And so it's going to have to be a philosophical shift, I think, not only for him, but also for Shane Steichen and how they're calling these plays and running them, where, he's just going to have to protect himself, but also be a little more conservative with when he takes off. I think the more concerning thing is, like, that's the unluckiness of playing in the NFL. I had a concussion my sophomore year in college. Outside of that, I played in every single game my entire time from true freshman year to senior year. And I got in the NFL and was like, all right, Monday Night Football, boom, I break my right index finger. You had a Liz Frank injury the next year where a guy falls in the back of your leg. I'm warming up back squatting. I herniated 2 discs in my back with like 185 pounds on my back, which was nothing. So you start, like, going through it. It's like sometimes it's just unlucky. It's unlucky. And I'm not, I hope this doesn't continue for him. The good thing is they have Minshew to kind of, be able to hold things over. But That's the reality of the NFL. Is like the football god. Sometimes the ball bounces your way, sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it's been tough to see so far because he is so talented. He's played well when he's out there healthy, but they're going to have to try to find a way of protecting him more.
Yeah.
Yep. Sucks to see. He's been a great player. But you're right. I mean, like, and modern medicine helpful, but modern medicine more helpful. Like, anyway. It's easier to get hurt now on some stuff. ACL ended careers if you like back when you played, and now it's like, oh, ACL, don't mind if I do swap that out for.
We're not that old, Will. It didn't end your
You thought you
career.
were playing with leather helmets on?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah,
You're pretty.
it looks like we have to just chop it off. There, Will. It's a torn ACL, but yeah, we're gonna have to amputate, doctor.
On that note, we're gonna chop off the end of this podcast, and that'll do it for us on this Tuesday. So Brady, producer Brady, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, rate, and review. Give us that 5-star rating on anywhere you listen to your podcast. See you guys.